Alrighty, so in this tutorial what we're going to be looking at are sliders. We're not talking about those greasy, nasty, smelly things everyone raves about from White Castle. And if I've offended you so far, I'm sorry. But while you're here, being offended or not being offended, might as well hit that sub, like, smash the whatevers, because I'm going to be putting out more videos as often as I can, but it'll at least be once a week in batches of one to however many, depending on the topic. So when we're talking about sliders, we're talking about, let's think about this as like a volume, because that's the example I'm going to do, because I'm going to mimic what you see in the docs and material UI. So up here at the top, we already have everything, and feel free to pause the video and add in or type in everything here. So let's come in here and just kind of see how they do this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use typography here, and let's just do this and say, you know what, I could do volume, I'll do base level. I have a sound system, and I was living in a house I was renting, and then I moved, and I had to turn the bass to like -7, and it still rattles a little bit, and so I'm disappointed. I can't let my neighbors feel the full power of my sound system. First world problems, right? So then we're gonna make a container, because I'm gonna show you how they set this up here. And I did toy with the spacing. You could do it however you want to, but 2 is, in my opinion, pretty good here. So then we're gonna have a grid. We're gonna have an item in here, and then what we're gonna have is a volume down icon. And let's come in here, and we might as well go ahead and since these are in blocks here, volume up. And so in the middle, what are we going to do? And let me not do that. Let me space this out here, because sometimes when you have like grid, it kind of it looks a little messy. So let me space this out a little bit here. So we're going to have another grid. We can have an item, extra small here. And then we're going to come in, and this is where we're actually going to put our slider. And so we're going to have to give it some information. Once again, if you've been looking at the other videos, we have to give it a value. We're going to have to do something with the on change here. What's going to happen when we move it? And I'm being a bad person by not having the ARIA label in there, but I do recommend adding it in there for easier usability. Got to close this off right here. All right, good stuff. And so let's come up here and just kind of do the 1-2 step of this. And so we're going to make a const value, set value, and then this, it goes up to 100, and you'll see what I mean in a second. I could toggle with it, but I can start at 0, so that means that the base is all the way down. So we're going to have an arrow function here. Alright, so now we have this right here. So then what we're going to do next is we're going to hit save here and see if it self-destructs anything. Alright, cool. So this isn't too bad here. So what we're going to do next is come in here, and there is a little bit of styling that's going to be going on here. And it's not that, I guess, difficult to implement, but let's come up here and do class name. Once again, this is straight out of the docs too. We're going to come up into here, and we're going to go in and use our styles, For some of these things, it is important. For other things, it's not important. We're going to give this a width of 200 here. Oh, we have to bring it in. Sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. And it says can't resolve module CSS. Oh, that's interesting. That may be from something else I was working on. But yeah, delete that. And so now that we have this right here, we could see that the base level is all the way down. Sadly, that's how it would be at my place. But what we could do now is, oh, the class name is app. Let's just remove this here. There we go. It doesn't really do much, but all right, now we're in check here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come down here. We're going to have an item. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have another typography section here. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to come in and set the value. So clearly we see it's 0, and it can only go up to 100 right here. And I need to spell spacing correctly. There we go. And so now we see that we could capture the input level here. So if you wanted to maybe make your own, music, or maybe even some kind of video type of application, I'm not sure what it would be. Maybe you're going to make the next TikTok or whatever. Or maybe you're making some kind of front end that connects to an API that actually connects to a sound system here. You now are able to use a slider, which is as easy as this right here, and move it around, and I think that's pretty neat. Alright, so in this next section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to look at ways to kind of customize the slider that we have here. And the only thing I kind of done differently, and I'm going to show you here because I was playing around with this a little bit because I think it's fun. I changed the width to 600 because I think it's a bit more impactful. And so if we come down here, we could add these attributes in here, and we could do something like step by 0. So if we're looking at this here, and let me set this back to 100. We'll just remove this. So we see the marks here. Let's just start with this. We have the marks, and that just means that every value that you could increment across is accessible right here. So as we go up to 100, each one of these marks here, that kind of does something weird right there. That has to be something probably stylistically that you'd have to fix yourself, or maybe something dumb I'm doing. But what you're able to do is slide up and down, and each check mark here represents a value that you could select there. So that's what marks could do. Let's say that we wanted to do something like, we want to start with the minimum value. So if we're going to have a base level, right, let's just start with 10. And so now that we see this starts here at level 10, which is pretty nice for us. I know up here there's that use state issue, but once again, this is for tutorial purposes. You'll want to smooth this out later, possibly on your end here. So you go up to 100, we have the low in here being at the minimum of 10. So if you know it's going to be a minimum of 10, you're going to want to, maybe set this at least till 10 up here, right? That makes logical sense. So let's do by steps here. So, or step, I should say. And let's do 10. And so we see here that we're skipping by 10 all the way up. We could also do this by 2 if we wanted to, all the way up and down from 10 to 100. And these are just some of the ways that you could give a bit more, I guess, visual references or cues to your users, especially if maybe they're ordering something, customizing something. Maybe you have some kind of application with a lot of these going on, right? And then maybe upon a value in another slider, you have to come back and be like, whoa, okay, so I'm gonna have to change the steps on this by 10 or by 5 because of another choice that was made. And that's one thing that Material UI does for you, is gives you that customization, which is pretty, nice out of the bag. So in this part of the video, what we're going to be looking at is the ability to kind of remember those marks that we just did. What we're going to be able to do is set them along the way, but we're only going to allow the user to go a certain amount of them. And so I've been playing around with this. It's pretty neat stuff. I've kind of chiseled it down to like the bare minimum you need, and I removed a lot of the stuff we previously had in the slider. It still works, but it doesn't have any of that flash or pizzazz we had before. So one thing that we're going to want to do before we go any farther, we're going to have our marks, or whatever you want to call them. We're going to have an array, and then we're going to have a value of 0, and then a label to go along with it, no base, and then let's just copy and paste this a couple more times. We don't need much more for what we're going to be doing. We're going to make this a low rumble, and then we're going to crank it all the way up here. Actually, let's change this into super base. So we're going to come in here, and what we're going to do is remember that marks attribute. Now we're going to set it to the marks const that we have above here. And so I know we have this up here, so let's come up here, and you know what, we could do it right here. Let's set the default value. We're going to set this to 0. And so you notice now that we kind of still have this issue of, well, it's not really doing anything. You just have marked certain points on here, and you can't go really any, you can't skip to here to here to here. It's still kind of broken in the middle. That's because what you're going to end up needing is to go to the step, and we need to give it null right here. So come up here, save that so it starts at 0. And so now what we're able to do, once again, you're going to have to fix the stylings because it does some weird stuff there, and I think it's that the typography element right here kind of doing something a bit odd. But now what we're able to do is we could set a bunch of check marks along the way, and what you could do is you could have this engage your user and say, at this point, there's no base, this is a low rumble, but say you're making something that shows them a recipe or a recipe maker. So this is no salt, and then you have something up here that says all they'll taste is salt. And so maybe you could have something that'll show all the ingredients right here with their default values of how to make a recipe, and then what you could do is tweak it on your own, save it to your profile, and then you could have, I don't know, I kind of like cookies that maybe are a little bit saltier, but maybe it's because I haven't had dinner yet. But that's one of the things you could do with these marks right here. Set the step to null, default to 0 if you're using the state up here. You kind of want to sync those things up, and that's pretty much it.